And then you showed me, I love this. Now Suwama and Ashino are a tag team because Ashino came in with Infants and came right after Suwama. So this has kind of been the story. And I like this after 18 months now of Ashino in this company, we've got this story of him being the guy in Wrestle One, right? And he's faltered every time. Right. And they've kind of made that the story is that Ashino comes in, he gets real hot, and then when it's really time, he falls. And now they're doing Suwama's almost like, no, man, I'm gonna help you get over the top. And they're like training together now. Right?
Yeah, it also, how can I put it? This perfectly falls into place in this idea in Japan. There's this idea of kenkyo. Kenkyo is like the idea of like, it means like being humble, like humble or modesty. Like that's a really highly valued virtue that everyone has. Everyone's taught from childhood. It's, you know, everyone is kind of like, it's, we all grow up with different backgrounds, but in general, we often share a lot of virtues across the world. But in Japan, especially something like modesty and the act of being humble is really looked at as a total baby face characteristic. Now, like you said, Ashino was the ace of Wrestle One. He technically, or in kayfabe in the story, he didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to show any respect. He came from the outside. He came in,
Crashed everybody. Yeah.
and he had success. He's no joke. He has wins over Jake Lee, even though he struggled. He had serious matches with all the top stars over the past year. He's the real deal, but he still couldn't get past Suwama, the old sheriff. Okay, and it's really common in Budo and Japanese martial arts for like, especially when you lose in a competition or in a big spar, if you lose to somebody and then go to them humbly to learn from your mistakes, because Ashino is somebody who wants to get to the next level. And it's that symmetrical idea of passing the torch. Passing the torch is a really big idea in not just wrestling culture, but Japanese culture in general.
So now that you've broken it down culturally like that, I like it even more. And like to paraphrase this to our American buddies who might be listening to this, it's Rocky 3,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Very much. Very much so.
Like Suwama is definitely playing Apollo Creed here, and he's really helping. It's the match results are different, but the storyline is pretty much the same. Is the former enemy, the older veteran, is really going to help this guy who's been to the mountaintop and needs to find a new sense of self. And in Rocky, it's the Eye of the Tiger. And this one, I love this idea that Suwama has to be humbled a little bit, which makes fucking perfect sense.
Or
I
Ashino, you
now that
mean?
you've Ashino, excuse me. Ashino has to humble himself a little bit. And I absolutely love this, the way you've broken this down to me, because it makes perfect sense. Because it's easy to go like, how does Ashino not know? Because again, in America, we'd easily go like, it's insulting to put him in here. But it's not in that culture. Like, I think we lose some of that going across cultural lines. And they delivered on this. It's working because now Suwama and Ashino won the All Asia tag titles.
Yeah, almost suddenly. So
the story is it's working.
yeah, and I mean it's just kind of, in ways it's a Japanese version of a white bread baby face story where so, and also I would say the big difference between this angle and say Rocky 3 is there's also, in addition to the idea of Kenkyo, there's a serious and very strong emphasis on the like junior senior relationship, senpai-kohai. If to understand Japanese culture on a more deeper level, I think one of the first things you really have to do is understand that it's a vertical relationships. Understand that it's hierarchical relationships. It's not like we grew up here where like it's different. It's more horizontal, you could say. But where you are in the hierarchy really, really affects the entire context. And in this situation, Ashino's context is he's not only younger than Suwama, but he's also from the other team. So he in doing this, he showed to the Japanese audience that he overcame a lot of his own pride and really does care about doing his best, which is another nuance in Japanese culture, the culture of gambari, the doing your best and going 100% or full force. That's another, nuance that we could get into, but he's showing a lot of great attributes in these actions. And it's subtle and it's not easy to see. It's not like we're not going to see something like this on AEW, but if you know the context, it makes it that much sweeter.
Yeah, and it wouldn't fit though in AEW. Like this fits in the context in which it's presented.
This is a
Right?
great Japanese style story.
It is, and it's become like this company. It's become my favorite company. Like last year, I honestly think Dragon Gate was my favorite company in Japan. This year, or no, I'm sorry, no, it was my favorite last year. This year, it's really been a All Japan. Like I think the company is really just with these type of things, like the Jake Lee going the other way, right? And they become really cool, like negative images of each other. So I'm a big fan of this whole thing, man. I think it's really working.
There's a great mix or dynamic of talent, especially since the Wrestle One contracts were absorbed earlier this year or last year. Somebody like Ashino in the picture rounds things out. You also got those other two big fellas, Doi, Koji Doi, and Kumarashi. They're awesome. They add so much to, like, just as a tag division. I'd love to see the new tag champions Suwama and Ashino versus those ex Enfants Terribles.
Sorry, I lost signal for a second there.
That's all good. Yeah.
You
So
there?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I think I really it is kind of sudden, but yeah, Suwama Ashino. Let's see where it goes.